Okay. Just say, Carla, when I start.
Ready.
Okay. Comenzamos entonces. Pues bueno, ¿qué tal? Buenas tardes, bienvenidos a Campuses Without Walls. En este workshop vamos a formar parte de las discusiones desde las visiones de diferentes expertos hacia una misma búsqueda y que en tiempos como los actuales con estos escenarios de pandemia toman extrema relevancia, ¿no? Necesitamos estar juntos, pero no podemos estar juntos. Y de qué manera nuestros investigadores han explorado estas posibilidades y en este panel vamos a descubrirlo. Pues presento a nuestros oradores, nuestro principal investigador, Jarmo Suominen, que es director del City Science Lab en la Universidad de Aalto en Finlandia, el doctor Eduardo Santana, director del Museo de Ciencias Ambientales del Centro Cultural Universitario de la Universidad de Guadalajara, Gustavo Padilla, rector del campus CUSEA de la Universidad de Guadalajara, Kevin Davis, director de Facilities del MIT Media Lab, Kent Larson, director del City Science Group del Media Lab, Gabriela Villanueva, directora del Centro Internacional de Excelencia Empresarial de CUSEA, que es Centro Cultural Universitario el Centro de Ciencias Económico-Administrativas de la Universidad de Guadalajara, Víctor Larios, director del Centro de Innovación también de CUSEA, y Juan Demerutis, coordinador del programa de Maestría de Urbanismo en la Universidad de Guadalajara. Pues bienvenidos, muchas gracias. Adelante, Jarmo, ¿quieres comenzar? Gracias.
So I'm ready to go. Yes? Okay.
Yes.
So do you hear me well? Because it's just cut me off, but if you hear me well,
yes.
Let's start. Okay.
Sound nice.
So Campus Without Walls, I'm going to present some big ideas, how we use environment in new ways. The innovation of use rather than innovation how we build them. And I have some examples from Finland, from the Aalto University, and then to go forward from that, how to scale up this idea to be even a global paradigm change, how to use environment. And in order to show this, I prepared this short kind of agenda. So, introduction, I will show some research that we have done in Aalto. And then, based on the research, we established a kind of entity, company. I will show the methods, how we actually scale it up. Then we have the discussion with panelists, like 1 hour time. And then I try to wrap up, and even with the questions of the audience, we can think about what might be the next steps. How could we go forward from here? And especially next steps, there's an example of a University of Guadalajara campus. And I would like to think about not only how this works in Finland or Europe, but how we might use something like this in Mexico. And like the introduction, so this one text in the middle, Campus Without Walls, how can we use the built environment more effectively, not more efficiently? I'm not talking about efficiency. I'm talking about effective. How can we actually create environments that are more beneficial and more usable for external groups, for the ecosystem rather than internal groups? And as was presented as a speakers, I will do the introduction like 15 minutes. Then Eduardo is starting, and other speakers are following, have their own comments or presentation, maybe around 5 minutes per time. And then we have a kind of more common discussion and wrapping up after that. I think that's kind of clear thing. So Campus Without Walls, I start with the introduction and maybe the main concept. So this is kind of a very simplified version of that, but in the left-hand side, what I call product innovation. In traditional campus, we have buildings. And each building contains one function or a couple of functions, but it's kind of independent entity focus on the efficiency of the thing. It could be university department, it could be school, it could be office building, etc. But in the right-hand side, we have the distributed campus model that instead of building these buildings, we use environment. I call this service innovation. The focus is on the use, not the product itself. And again, I don't want to confuse with the product I mean buildings. They could be beautiful, they could be awful, they could be whatever. But in this workshop, we are focusing how we use them. And these small cubicles means that there are lots of resources around us that requires hosting, operation, and service innovation. And by saying hosting, I mean that this also creates new market, a new job. It's kind of a job creation as well to third-party host of these resources. So first example that we start in University of Aalto in Finland, in a city science lab, there is to think about high school. 5 years ago, how could we, instead of building high schools as a building like we are doing so far in Finland, how could we put the high school in the campus and let the high school students use the same resources than university students? Because university has lots of resources unused. Even in the campus, there was 30 restaurants, canteens. And in traditional high school, we built one more. But in this case, we didn't need to build anything more because most of the thing exists there already. So the outcome of this is that we decrease the cost, we lower the CO2 emissions, we have quite a big amount of more students in the same premises. And they, based on the research, they claim to be more motivated and inspired because they think that they are learning together with the society. So, but this network model is not, you cannot do this just by opening doors. You need to manage the network. You need to operate the multi-location kind of availabilities. Because, and it's a different thing. It's a kind of network management rather than facility management. And with facility management, I mean that you manage one building at a time, but here you manage the network of activity itself. And we established first school, and that was, I can say, immediate success. We established second school, and now we are working with 5 schools in Helsinki metropolitan area, high schools, with the same model. And before I continue, I want to say that what happens is that first university opened their premises, the school, but very soon it happens that we have third-party kind of hosts and operators who start to open new resources and create a new business model to the campus that university and high school are using both the resources of third parties now. So this was just a very quick thing that it leads to better learning experience and better learning resources. And what is the kind of interesting, the students say that they were more engaged, they were more motivated for learning in an open system rather than what I call in a prison type of institution. And this could happen in different scales, in the building scale, in the campus scale, or even in the city scale. So this same kind of principle and same logic applies to everything. But in order to do this in a bigger scale, in the first example we do by hand, manually, but in order to do it bigger scale, we need to have the service platform. It's not anymore possible to do it by hand. So we test these platforms in an Aalto campus, which is this illustration. There was 50,000 square meters of open space that was leased out through the idea that it's a service platform. We introduce what we call membership model. Companies can come without actually renting square meters, they rent access. They pay for access to resources of university campus. And that was the boom of new co-working concepts. And also within 5 years, we increased the amount of companies in the campus from 10 to 140. So by enabling them to participate, but not forcing them to move there. And here is just, I don't go this in detail, but just one simulation of what happens in Aalto campus. So the cost per person goes lower once we use more network. All the cost will decrease, and the usage of the resources will increase. And in many ways, that's a quite sustainable development. We use more what we have already. And just kind of wrapping this up, so university, the income of university will increase, the stakeholder engagement will increase, and the facility cost will decrease because Aalto decreased the footprint of the university itself. And in order to do that, I already mentioned, we established a company to actually scale this up based on the research, to scale this up for the other cities and other locations. We developed this simulation tool, which I'm going to show you, the management tool, the dashboard, and also user interface, how users find and unlock and reserve spaces, which is this mobile app. And I'm thinking about this as a kind of activity-based environment. There could be, you could call it ecosystem or landscape of working, but nevertheless, it's an open environment that users can have freedom of choice to choose what is best for their purposes. And as I mentioned, so we have this kind of platform and connected up to actually simulate, manage, and plan environments that can be used in different ways, new ways. And then for the facility management or campus management, we have this dashboard developed, and it's under development constantly. But so these kind of more exact numbers based on the usage, based on CO2 emissions, based on the actual issues that matters from the investment and planning point of view. And as the last slide of this section, this also, I could use the sustainable development goals to show that this kind of logic actually impacts in education. It creates economic growth by creating new jobs, it's job creation. Actually, it's you could think about as a flexible infrastructure of the society or the campus or city. It reduces inequalities because it allows more people to participate in the process. It's sustainable, it's resilient or responsible, it's climate friendly, and it helps strong institutions to develop their partnerships. So this was the kind of short introduction. I hope we can come back that if I was not clear. But then I very briefly show 3 scenarios what might happen in Guadalajara. And I must say, I've never been there. I tried to use the good Google map that was sent to me to understand. So if there's some mistake, just forgive me. But the scenarios are campus as a service, as a learning platform, museum or the learning experience based on museum as a service, and workplace as a service. How could we use campus as a working environment? And I want to think about campus in extended way. It's not exactly the campus that university owns, but the ecosystem around that. And I will show it in the presentation. And by using the same methodology that we have the resources, we have the interface, how to access these resources. I think in these use cases that maybe in the future, the campus could be more open and underutilized resources more kind of utilized. And this is also important, especially in the time of now in the quarantine and COVID-19. Our original idea was to manage or the increase social density, but actually we could manage the social density in new ways. We could lower the density as well in the network easier than in the building. So this was just so that we collect the resources and we create the interface for them. So let me go. So this is just a very kind of simplified version of the resources around the campus. Campus is here. And then I go deeper into it, the university resources, the commercial resources, the public resources around that. And in the scenario 1, campus as a service, I was thinking about increase the flexibility of the staff, the users, the students, how the campus could be more adaptive, how the campus university utilize and the environment outside campus could be utilized as well, and learning together, social learning. And I was thinking these communities, a little bit even far away from the campus, what are the touch points? How could they use these resources together with the campus? And how could this CUSEA campus here in the middle, how can that be not only open to others, but think about how that could be, how can I say, use the capacity of existing environment. How could we step to the other field of that?
Jarmo,
yes.
Solo para comentarte que ya pasaron los 15, pero adelante. Gracias.
So I will go very briefly through this. And so we could introduce then the school model in the community. So this could be, so any of these, we could think about high school here, and campus and university will use that together. So I know there are churches and libraries and etc. here around. But without going into details, we could think about, based on the simulation, what are the outcome of the financial outcome as well. The second simulation is museum as a service, the similar type of approaches. To think about how the museum will extend itself to its natural environment. And Eduardo might disagree. This was just a very brief thing that, okay, here are some issues that you could think about. That its museum is not anymore the building, but it could be the environment, the landscape around it. And this approach could be extended, of course, even further from the museum to the environment, and even to the large extent of the city of Guadalajara. And the last thing is that the workplace as service, I jumped this, to think about how can we use these resources with commercial enterprises for the development, for research, for different projects. And this is not black and white, so we could identify meeting room here instead of adding the campus, and could these companies use them resources together. And we could actually, once we identified resources, we could create the interface and think about this social learning or social value co-creation in terms of people coming together in more neutral platform, not inviting companies to work in university premises or going to company premises, but choose whatever suits best. So this was very brief and quite fast overview of the idea. I can leave this slide which shows these three scenarios on, and I think there's no immediate questions. We could continue with the other panelists like that. Is that okay? And if there's no other questions, I think Eduardo, maybe you can continue.
Yeah. Thank you, Jarmo. Could I have the screen, please, to show?
You should be able to share screen. But Jarmo, you should stop sharing so that Eduardo can share the screen now.
Mónica, ¿me dices cuando me queda un minuto?
Sí, perfecto. ¿Lo señalo de esta manera o...? Gracias.
No, dímelo.
Perfecto. Gracias, Héctor.
Okay, can you see my screen?
Sí.
Yes.
Okay, so my talk is a little different. I'm going to talk about what the museum is about and the context of not having walls. And the way I started is going to the dictionary. So campus comes from Latin, and it's open flatland field. It doesn't have any walls by definition in its original concept, and it shouldn't have any walls now. Without means in absence of or outside. So just these two words means that we shouldn't be having walls when we talk about universities. And walls comes from vallum, rampart, or row of stakes, which is aggressive, chiefly for defense, serves to hold back pressure, layer enclosing a space. And when you have sayings like up against the wall, it's a desperate position, state of defeat, a failure, of ruin. Or you're off the wall, that means you're crazy. Or drives you up the wall is annoyance, frustration, irritation. So walls really do not seem to bring anything good, even from the original component. Somebody's writing on my screen, or maybe I am. So dismantling walls and creating bridges is our objective, to make seamless connections between school and society, teachers and students, lecture and research, research and outreach, outreach and lecture, basic and applied, theory and practice, text and images, virtuality and reality, academics and management, experts and lay people, policy and practice, top down, institutions and community, different disciplines, and unidirectional communication versus multi-directional communication. These are all areas, and each one could be a book, where we have to break down walls if we're going to achieve a sustainable society. And talking about walls, when we started doing our museum, I gave the 5 architects, Shigeru Ban, Craig Dykers, Diller Scofidio, and Renfro. It was Renfro, Mauricio Rocha, and Smiljan Radic from Chile. This movie by Danny McCaskill. And in essence, what this shows is parkour, bicycle parkour. So we have bicycles using fences as bridges, and we have a bicycle jumping over walls or using barriers as places to go in, or using rooftops as if they are the ground. So what we have is people using architecture and what we construct in ways that they were never thought of, breaking schemes, coming out of the box. And in essence, what we construct and in our education, this is the type of concept that we have, is in essence, educational parkour is what we should be doing, and not respecting walls, or like Ken Larson says, anti-disciplinary. So this is the museum early on. And in essence, it didn't have walls. So we've been constructing it and designing it for 10 years now. We don't have walls, but we have 10 years of concrete work going on without the walls. This is how it's beginning to look now as we're finishing it. And I think we can use the concept of Ian Illich, who lived here in Mexico, about deschooling society, of having education outside of the buildings. And Aldo Leopold's thinking, when he says education, our fear is learning to see one thing by going blind to another. And maybe there's no way of preventing that as we specialize to go blind to other things, but achieving that integrality is fundamental. So we see the processes of service learning to achieve transdisciplinary education and new ways of converging in outreach-based research outside of the walls that we think in the museum are fundamental. The other aspect is I use Jorge Wagensberg's concept of knowledge, of 3 types of knowledge: scientific, artistic, and revealed. And they each have their own rules. You don't play chess with poker rules. You don't play poker with chess rules, but they all interact with each other and they have their ways of doing. But that, in essence, that way of thinking brings us back to the original meaning of museum as Hall of Muses. So poetry and music is just as important as mathematics and as chemistry and physics. Now, the museum is in the context of a very large and ambitious project of transforming the city of Guadalajara and Zapopan around a university cultural center where the museum is in the center. And this is not what we want to create, although this is what happens when you have real estate and you have fancy universities and you have shopping centers, which all are being considered. And then you have inequality that has been growing with the pandemia. And this is where we are. ¿Me queda un minuto?
Sí,
Okay.
ya, sí.
Okay,
Gracias.
entonces, bueno, so we centered a natural history museum, which was the object. We center it on cities, which are the greatest major causes of change. And they're seen as the best hope for humankind, or also the best worst part. But humans have not evolved in cities, only less than 1%. So cities is the large challenge. So we have a museum, that natural history museum, to promote informed citizen participation in governance platforms to reduce suffering and increase survival of humans and their accompanying species on planet Earth. This is not common for a natural history museum. I'll leave the rest of the talk for later discussion. Thank you.
Muchas gracias, doctor Eduardo. Muy interesante, es verdad, cómo podemos ver los museos como pues esta falta de paredes, ¿no? Kevin Davis, director de Facilities del MIT Media Lab. Gracias.
Good evening, everybody, and thank you for having me. Looking forward to it. So I'm with the Media Lab, and the Media Lab is a multidisciplinary department consisting of research facilities, wet labs such as a clean room, chemistry labs, bio labs, and a nano lab. So those spaces are really hard to reconfigure. It's more or less finite because of the mechanicals involved. The research spaces can be refigured. Some of the research spaces have double height ceilings and some have single height ceilings. What we're trying to achieve is, how do we work with the research groups and what space can best meet their needs? If someone needs height to do an aerial work, it doesn't make any sense to put them in a low ceiling environment. So we're trying to work with the faculty when we open up the building on what works best for them. So we need to get that right. I think we've been doing it. But unfortunately, with the pandemic, what the pandemic did for how we work now is what 9/11 did on how we travel. The pandemic is changing. It's a game changer on how we look at our workplaces. You know, initially, we crammed people in offices, we crammed people in the open areas. Now we're receding from that. We have scheduled times when people come into an office. I'll give you an example. We have offices at about 130 square feet per office. We put 3 people in that office. Today, that's unacceptable. And I see going forward that that's going to be accepted practice, is that it's just going to be 1 person in the office. So we need to work with research groups on how they're going to utilize their spaces. And the demands for the research, because the technology is always changing. It's like what was good 6 months ago is not good today. So we need to get that right. Talk about open spaces. We looked at in-person classes for the fall semester on how we could do that. It was overwhelmingly voted that we do not want to do in-person classes. But what the theme kept coming up was, can we do classes outdoors? And working with the provost's office, we had identified some areas where we could do outdoor classes. The problem was that the weather up here is so unpredictable that it was the best decision not to go ahead with any outdoor classes. Well, like as of tonight, we're going to have a freeze. So, and it's early October. So we like to be able to work with the researchers and kind of meet their needs through employee attrition. We've had a surplus of space come upon us in my 20 years at the lab. This has never been seen before. It's always been, we need more space, we need more space. Now we have the space. So how do we utilize that space? I think it's really depressing when you walk into an open space and there's nothing happening. You see like a nice lab area and there isn't any work. So what we need to do too is how do we expand? Some research groups are really overcrowded, so maybe we use that as a little bit of swing space. Maybe going further, we can expand their research group where they have the space that they need to grow. So that's a couple of things that we're looking at. We have this tremendous lobby in our new building expansion. Well, it's 10 years old now, but it's a beautiful lobby that we use to exhibit works of art and projects. But when we do not have any exhibits going on, it's just empty. And there's this natural double height ceilings, it's natural lighting. People are going to be looking for, the students, staff, and faculty and visitors, if they're going to be looking for spaces and be social distancing, I'm looking at that lobby as being maybe an ideal attraction to put it to use. I'm sorry I didn't have any slides. And that's...
Okay. Muchísimas gracias. Thank you very much. Thank you. Gustavo Padilla, rector del campus CUSEA de la Universidad de Guadalajara.
Creo que podríamos ir al siguiente y regresar al maestro Gustavo Padilla.
Perfecto.
Acaba de ingresar.
Muchísimas gracias, Carla.
Sí.
Ya.
Kevin, me parece muy interesante esto que comentas sobre pues esta cuestión de los espacios abiertos que no tenemos pensado hasta esta cuestión del COVID, ¿no? Como bien lo comentas. Y pues bueno, muy interesante la charla y muy interesante cómo se van entrelazando todas las opiniones. Muchísimas gracias. Perdón, Gustavo Padilla, ¿está por aquí, Carla?
Aquí estoy.
Perfecto. Muchísimas gracias. Bienvenido, rector del campus CUSEA, Universidad de Guadalajara.
Muchas gracias. Bueno, primeramente, si me permiten compartir pantalla.
Ya debe tener habilitada esa opción, maestro.
Bien, bueno, muchas gracias primeramente por la oportunidad de poder compartir con ustedes una visión que estamos adoptando en el CUSEA de la Universidad de Guadalajara, y felicidades por este excelente espacio. Bueno, primeramente decirles que para el Centro Universitario de Ciencias Económico-Administrativas es un honor poder compartir con ustedes esta experiencia. Partimos del principio de una experiencia de prácticamente 6 años de un servidor en la Secretaría de Innovación, Ciencia y Tecnología del Gobierno del Estado de Jalisco, en donde nos dimos cuenta que el mundo cambió, en donde necesitamos ahora ser sensibles de que hay una gran demanda. Sí, ya volvió el sonido. Por algo lo cerró. Decía yo que hay una demanda global para incrementar el acceso a la educación superior de calidad. Y eso nos lleva a repensar muy bien nuestros modelos de educación superior. Lo ha dicho el rector general, tenemos que pensar de una manera disruptiva y poder resolver los retos de la educación fomentando una cultura educativa hacia la sustentabilidad y desde luego esta perspectiva social de la responsabilidad de la comunidad universitaria, en donde tengamos que responder a una reducción de brechas de desigualdad social, de género, económicas, étnicas y discapacidades, con la protección del medio ambiente y, por supuesto, adoptar medidas para retener o para poder mitigar el impacto del cambio climático, Por supuesto, lo que está sucediendo con la industria, con esta transformación de la industria 4.0, la cuarta revolución industrial, la inteligencia artificial, la automatización, el futuro del trabajo y el empleo, pues que hay una gran demanda por formar ese talento con nuevas habilidades y competencias, un entorno de rápida evolución de la economía. Ahora prácticamente todos los sectores económicos a nivel global están trabajando a partir de ecosistemas de innovación y necesitamos inducir de manera directa y constante la tecnología a nuestras aulas, a las universidades, para responder a esta demanda de hipertecnologización y acelerar evidentemente la digitalización y democratizar el acceso a la información. Esta pandemia nos aceleró, nos obligó a repensar nuestros modelos. Por eso es que CUSEA se ha propuesto este modelo de crear un ecosistema innovador de educación abierta, híbrida, flexible y incluyente, con entornos de aprendizaje activo, en donde el joven pueda ser inspirado a la creatividad y a la innovación, al emprendimiento, ligando el campus como un espacio abierto con los ecosistemas que existen ya a nivel local, nacional y por supuesto internacional. Obviamente una cultura y una conciencia de cuidado del medio ambiente. A mí me gusta mucho lo que acaba de decir Eduardo Santana, porque precisamente CUSEA prácticamente cruzas un periférico, una avenida y estás del otro lado del Centro Cultural Universitario, y por eso tenemos que integrar muy bien las infraestructuras y los servicios dedicados a la gestión del medio ambiente con la formación del talento. Podemos entonces pensar en campus como living labs para las ciudades, con entornos de conocimiento de base científica, tecnológica, vinculados a la sociedad, al gobierno, interactuando para resolver problemas, infraestructuras y servicios basados en tecnologías, una gobernanza también universitaria, abierta y digital. Por eso es que entonces la propuesta de CUSEA Smart Campus tiene que ver con esa transformación de las ciudades a ciudades inteligentes, en donde nos hemos propuesto estas 6 dimensiones: Smart People, Smart Economy, Smart Living, Smart Government, Smart Environment, Smart Mobility. Y por ello, por ejemplo, si me da el tiempo, voy a pasar un video, nada más para que vean una sola de las iniciativas que estamos impulsando bajo esta dimensión de Smart.
Llega a la Universidad de Guadalajara el primer vehículo autónomo con el objetivo de ofrecer un servicio de autobús sin conductor, operado con inteligencia artificial para sumar a la estrategia de transición energética desde el CUSEA a la red universitaria. El futuro en el presente con este proyecto nos permite hacer investigación de frontera en un laboratorio viviente en el Smart Campus, a través del Centro de Innovación en Ciudades Inteligentes, para explorar las soluciones para nuestra sociedad. Este proyecto único a nivel de América Latina es posible por la suma de esfuerzos entre industria, academia y gobierno para formar el talento y capacidades de las ciudades sustentables del futuro. La empresa Inteltrafic ofrece a través de la plataforma Navia una tecnología probada en una red de 17 sitios en el mundo, a los que la UDG se suma a colaborar para la oferta de soluciones de movilidad sustentable. El vehículo sin conductor tiene varios alcances. Otorga mayor seguridad, reduce tráfico en ciudades, genera un impacto ambiental y económico positivo, impacta en la reducción de uso y espacios para estacionamientos, incentiva la movilidad colectiva. Como un proyecto de investigación, se explorarán todos los escenarios seguros de operación para exponer a la comunidad académica a los retos de formación de talento en estas áreas, y se adecuará la infraestructura pertinente para el campus en su laboratorio vivencial. Posteriormente, este laboratorio se convierte en un showroom de los impactos de estas tecnologías a las ciudades, y se buscará probarlo en un escenario real de ciudad. Como actualmente el CUSEA es el único complejo universitario sin acceso inmediato a una vía de comunicación de transporte público masivo, conectaremos el Smart Campus con el Centro Cultural Universitario y la línea 3 del tren ligero, que está a 4 kilómetros de distancia con este vehículo autónomo sustentable. La iniciativa forma parte del proyecto integral Movilidad Inteligente y Sostenible del CUSEA Smart Campus, que estará conectando a iniciativas de energías limpias y movilidad en ciudades inteligentes, y que responde a los retos y desafíos de la educación superior en un mundo marcado por cambios tecnológicos, desigualdad social y un acentuado cambio climático que está degradando la viabilidad de nuestro planeta de forma acelerada. En el Centro Universitario de Ciencias Económico-Administrativas de la Universidad de Guadalajara, trabajamos en el presente para las ciudades del futuro.
Muchísimas gracias,
Una de las
Gustavo.
iniciativas de muchas que podemos seguir hablando sobre este proyecto de CUSEA Smart Campus. Muchas gracias.
Perfecto, muchísimas gracias. Muy amable. Ket Larson, director del City Science Group del Media Lab. Adelante.
Hello, everyone. Hola, ¿qué tal? So I'd like to come at the ideas that Jarmo, by the way, I don't have any slides. If you know me, I usually show lots and lots of slides. I'm just going to talk this time. I'd like to come at the ideas that Jarmo presented from a different direction. The pandemic has accelerated trends that were underway well before the pandemic. If you heard my interview with Norman Foster, he mentioned this, and I really do believe that big changes are in store for universities. Even if we quickly get a vaccine and immunity, things will not go back to normal. I do not believe. And one trend is online learning. So you may be aware that MIT and Harvard started a program called edX. It's this massive open online learning platform. There's something like 150 schools that plan to use this platform. So what does this mean? I think what it means is that the elite schools like Harvard, MIT, Yale, and Stanford, they have this tremendous advantage with their brand. In fact, many people will say the brand of value of these schools is in excess of the brand of an Apple or an Amazon. But of course, there is tremendous value to these face-to-face encounters that you get at a typical university that you don't get online. You develop social ties, develop friendships that turn into professional relationships. I think the world would be a terrible place if learning was all online, because that's just one part of the learning experience. But the challenge is the conventional model for universities, the bricks and mortar approach, is extremely expensive. The kind of facility that Kevin manages, the Media Lab, is just a really incredible treasure, but it's extraordinarily expensive, not just to build, but to operate. And the reality is that the traditional private university model is becoming elitist. And the elite schools will be just fine. They can target the 1%, you know, the wealthy of the wealthy. They can attract foreign students. They can give scholarships to the extraordinary underprivileged people. And in fact, they have the brand to develop an incredibly lucrative hybrid model of in-person learning and scalable virtual learning. So I could imagine MIT, rather than just having a few hundred freshmen, could have 1,000 freshmen or 10,000 freshmen each year through some combination of in-person and online, some hybrid model. But the business model for the second and third tier universities is broken. And you can read articles almost every day about these schools facing really dire financial futures. Hundreds, maybe thousands of these smaller schools will fail and they will close. They don't have the brand to go online, and the value of this in-person experience in these smaller schools is not valuable enough to attract the kind of tuition. So they need a new model, and I think the new model is some kind of a hybrid, but it probably is something more like this distributed model that Jarmo outlined, using the asset rather than building assets, using the underutilized assets in the community. I think it's just you know, an amazing time, and in fact, it's an incredible time to be thinking about this, because companies are downsizing as they figure out which activities they can move online, which they need to be face and face. Really sort that out. I believe there'll be lots of underutilized office spaces in the city, like I say, even after the pandemic. It's already happening. You see big tech companies saying that the trend to remote working is permanent. They're giving up leases. The shopping centers are dinosaurs with online shopping. That needs to be reconceived. You have vacant storefronts as restaurants have gone under, and I think that will change. So the point is that this is really an interesting and exciting time to think about this distributed model of using assets in the community. And in fact, I do believe that if you bring together the best of online learning, information transfer, plus the best of place-based, face-to-face interaction, projects, getting to know people, building relationships, and you use these underutilized resources in the community, it could save these second and third tier schools if they can effectively build this hybrid model. And so I really support the kind of work Jarmo is doing to try to figure out this exciting new future of asset light use of underutilized space in the city. And I think if we can do that, it makes the cities more vibrant and interesting places anyway. And like I say, probably in the end is a better experience for the students because they're out into the community interacting with people who are actually getting work done, not just faculty and other students. All right, those are my thoughts.
Muchas gracias, Kent. Es verdad, este modelo nos ha permitido extender otras capacidades. Es verdad que no podemos tocarnos ni comunicarnos, pero por ejemplo, ahorita estamos viéndonos en China, ¿no? Etcétera. Muchísimas gracias, Kent. Muy bien. Gabriela Villanueva, jefa de la Unidad de Centros de Emprendimiento de Innovación de la Universidad de Guadalajara. Muchas gracias, Kent. Gabriela, tienes tu micrófono apagado.
Perfecto, mil gracias.
Gracias a ti.
Gracias, estoy muy contenta de estar con ustedes. Ya estoy presentando mi pantalla. Yo les voy a presentar un proyecto increíble que tengo el honor de encabezar en este momento como jefa de la Unidad de Centros de la Unidad de Guadalajara. Les platico obviamente como que el pasado mes de febrero se hizo una reingeniería para reestructurar un rediseño de la estructura de la Universidad de Guadalajara para fortalecer las funciones sustantivas de la universidad. Y dentro de esta reingeniería, pues me complace mucho platicarles y presentarles que, bueno, se optó por tener una coordinación general de posgrado. Hoy les voy a platicar de dos áreas dentro de esta nueva coordinación, que es la que yo tengo el honor de dirigir, que es la Unidad de Centros de Emprendimiento e Innovación, y les voy a platicar también que existe una unidad de fomento de innovación y la transferencia de conocimiento. El objetivo de esta nueva unidad es ser un eje integrador que coordine iniciativas a lo largo de toda la red universitaria para propiciar, generar, desarrollar, vincular y certificar acciones y actividades en el fomento al emprendimiento, a la cultura del emprendimiento universitario. Entonces, es interesante que yo les platique lo que se va a hacer con esta reingeniería, que vamos a hacer una red de centros de emprendimiento e innovación general, y el impacto que esperamos por la visión que tiene nuestro rector general es que vamos a intentar coordinar las actividades y los esfuerzos de emprendimiento en toda la red. Y les platico, la Universidad de Guadalajara cuenta con 291,600 alumnos. En nivel superior tenemos 6 centros temáticos, 10 centros regionales, un sistema de universidad virtual, y en educación media superior tenemos 71 preparatorias, 96 módulos y 7 extensiones. Les presento aquí lo que existe como un ecosistema emprendedor, y esta es lo que pretendemos que sea la red de centros de emprendimiento e innovación en educación superior, y tenemos los impactos que va a tener esta nueva unidad. Vamos a tener un impacto en la currícula porque se va a trabajar en la materia de desarrollo de emprendedores como un eje transversal en todas las carreras. Vamos a capacitar profesores para la enseñanza del emprendimiento y certificarlos como tal. Vamos a abrir centros de emprendimiento en cada centro universitario de la red y vamos a trabajar lo que es la vinculación empresarial. Vamos a ser un promotor de la vinculación con las empresas y trabajar también con las comunidades externas de emprendimiento. De las primeras acciones y el impacto que vamos a tener es que el 35% de las carreras de la Universidad de Guadalajara tienen temas relacionados con emprendimiento en la currícula. Nosotros queremos llegar al 100% y esto pues va a impactar en licenciatura a 121,000 alumnos. Y les quiero platicar con mucho orgullo el primer piloto con el que vamos a arrancar en esta unidad, que es el primer centro afiliado y es en el centro que es Cualtos, que se llama el CIO, y lo elegimos porque el Cualtos es un centro regional con 3,800 alumnos, es un centro bellísimo también físicamente, y hablando de todos los espacios abiertos, pues Cualtos tiene una belleza en espacios abiertos, y con la nueva pandemia vamos a empalmar el emprendimiento con la nueva realidad que estamos viviendo. Cualtos tiene 13 carreras, impacta en 12 municipios, tiene proyectos ganadores ya en temas de emprendimiento, está habilitado ya con redes de negocio, tiene ferias de emprendimiento y está alineado al plan de sustentabilidad. Con ellos vamos a arrancar la primera convocatoria del programa Consultor Asociado CIO, estamos arrancando la primera incubadora virtual con la nueva realidad, y la unidad de aprendizaje va a ser el primer centro multitemático que lleve un eje transversal de emprendimiento. Les platico rapidísimo, este es el primer render que ya se está llevando a cabo, es un concepto integral inclusivo. Hablando de no muros, pues este es un centro que va a ser sin muros, es un espacio bellísimo, vamos a tener tecnología móvil también en este centro, en este CIO, y será un centro de emprendimiento bellísimo con el que vamos a arrancar. Y también en educación media superior vamos a arrancar con la primer preparatoria, que es el Politécnico Matute Remos, con el cual pues es una carrera, es un politécnico que son carreras técnicas. Con ellos también vamos a arrancar el proyecto de la primera incubación virtual y tenemos también trabajo realizado con ellos. Y por último les platico que dentro de la unidad tenemos un proyecto bellísimo que es Mercadito Vecino, que es nuestra contribución a la nueva realidad de la pandemia. Es una plataforma para promover el consumo local. Tenemos 30,000 negocios afiliados para el estado de Jalisco y estamos muy contentos que esa es una aportación social de la Universidad de Guadalajara. Muchísimas gracias y bueno, también tenemos pues la unidad de transferencia de tecnología. Muchas gracias por la oportunidad de presentarles esta área tan increíble de la Universidad de Guadalajara. Gracias, Mónica.
Perfecto, muchísimas gracias, Gabriela. Sí, pues como comenzó comentando Jarmo, es importantísima la red que tiene que ver con las empresas y pues bueno, pues ciertas iniciativas desde la Universidad de Guadalajara que son muy relevantes. Muchas gracias, Gabriela. Víctor Larios, director del Centro de Investigación de la Universidad de Guadalajara.
Okay, I'm going to get my presentation. So hello to everybody. So let me get ready this. I didn't put the format, but it will be a frame to share with all of you what we're doing and how we can contribute. And we appreciate a lot all the ideas and the invitation to be part of this initiative. So I start with this because this was Guadalajara a few years ago, but just it was horizontal. There were no buildings, and today we are just growing very fast and getting the skyline of the city. And this is part also of our new reality that we have inside. I am on the base a computer scientist, not an architect. But in smart cities, we need to mix with everybody and with many disciplines. And what we have as endeavor is to improve the real world, just doing things on the digital that can go faster, and then come back and bring back what we found that is interesting, that Jarmo is doing already with analysis and the interfaces that he's providing to understand better how to connect the places. But in fact, we believe that the real smart city is not the one with all the infrastructure only, but is the people, and is how the people is already interacting. So if we're putting fences in the different spaces, it's going to be hard for the people to interact and to have some ideas and exchanges. So we have the previous experience where we started in this Smart Cities Innovation Center with a project that was well known, the Digital Creative City. There was an impressive work to develop the master plans, and it was also an impressive effort of many organizations. There was about 100 organizations, all the local universities working together, private, public, etc. The project today is just in another different way. So, but we were all with the hope that we can start doing something to change. And that's how we started at the University of Guadalajara. And now it looks like the cultural center and this educational district will be the real big project to show and to get these lessons learned. But on the core of this project, the idea was to get in the public park just a big hub to connect the people from education, from the companies, and also the people living on the place, just to exchange and to provoke interactions, and with that get creativity and innovation. And that's how in that time, it was in 2013, I meet Gustavo Padilla. I didn't knew that he will be my boss, because now he's the dean of the campus where we are. But he was also a believer of how to change and to do these smart cities. So with that, we promoted Guadalajara to go up and be part of the network. It was the first city leading for the IEEE, which is an enormous organization looking for the standards and how the technology can benefit the humanity. So we have living and holding this network of cities, where we have also affiliated cities that are just exchanging best practices, more based in technology, but a city is more than just technology. It's the people and things that are happening behind. Just on the past week, we had the flagship conference that was virtual, should be in Budapest, but this time was virtual. But it was very interesting to see how topics and things are just moving inside. So we, with a small team, and our back support is our PhD students that we have in our programs on information technologies, the master students, and then we open through all the network of the university. So we used to have students from different campuses just coming to work with us. And we set up our first living lab with a network of sensors that was very common sensors. But behind that, we learned a lot. And our, if we can say, slogan was, make the things happen. Just don't stop and just do it. So we are very pragmatic in that sense, in applying technology. And what we learned was that there are different levels of technology. We passed it and we connected all the processes, because usually they were disconnected. So when we were in the engineering campus, they were very good for the infrastructure, but they didn't connect with the group that was doing the IoT. And then, this is very technical, the other group of databases was not talking. So again, connecting the people and getting the interactions in a common project from different perspectives and groups, it's very, very important. And this is what we integrated today in the skills and the positions that we have for the students, that now we are breaking also the walls inside the educational model, because usually the postgraduate school was isolated from the bachelor degree. So in that case, we were not getting enough students for the postgraduate school from our own campus. And now we open that opportunity because they have a lot of curiosity, these students. And now we're running even projects with the industry, like with IBM, just getting the high school inside and getting some training and getting the opportunity to work. So in that case, our students at the postgraduate school, they are just also getting some leadership experience, which is very important, because usually you have, especially in technology, this researcher that is just working on a space and very, very weak on communication with the others. So that's something that we have very important. But also what we're promoting, and we spend a lot of time with our dean, of course, because he connects and his dream is to have all the industry just coming to the campus and sharing and getting these human resources that we have and we're producing inside. Otherwise, it's in an isolated model. So to work in the quadruple helix. So we spend time to go with the authorities of the government at municipal, state level, and industry. And for this project, it's very important to keep that because we can have great ideas, but without the public policies, that cannot work. And also with the citizens, because the citizens are the ones that are going to put some mark for what we're doing, if it's working or not. So based on that, it's just what I have to say. And with this new reality, we used to dream on big spaces to share with the people that make us to dream. And the cultural center is that space, just connected with the campus is in another place. Of course, there are issues like security, but today the physical fences can be we can break that fences with the technology. So that's another point that we can help, and we can check how to do it with the full ecosystem of, especially for Guadalajara, which is not the size of the university, but just having also these big companies like IBM with 2,000 people working inside and eager to support also. It's not really the business of the companies, it's just how they can improve the place to be better and get better talent with new challenges.
Muchas gracias. Muchas gracias, Víctor. Y bueno, siempre es interesantísimo el trabajo que hace CUSEA para vincular esta cuarta hélice y pues toda la experiencia que ya ustedes tienen vinculando la parte de la educación con las empresas. Muchas gracias por la participación. Muy interesante la ponencia. Gracias. Juan Ángel Demerutis, coordinador del programa de maestría en urbanismo en la Universidad de Guadalajara. Adelante.
Thank you very much, Monica. Well, it's a pleasure to be here in this panel with all these celebrities. So we're very excited here in the group that is collaborating on this Masters on City Science. And well, the first thing I thought about this panel when I heard the title, Campuses Without Walls, it's a question. What are we doing in our university in terms of opening our campus or our campuses to the citizens? I want to start with saying that the university is a public university. Our students don't pay a penny to get in, only in the master's or the graduate programs, but the rest, it's for free. So we should be open. In that sense, we are open. But if you go to our campuses, you will see that there's a fence around, there's a gate. So my question is, are we really that open to the public in general, to the citizens? I think we should start with an assessment of what we're doing in those campuses in terms of opening them. But then it occurred to me, well, what if I open or we open these campuses? There's a lot of problems with safety now. The university is working in a program that it's starting to be successful. It's called Safe Paths, Senderos Seguros. And what we're doing is trying to make safe the road from the campus to the first stop of the public transportation. So we're working on that, but we're not working on how we can open our gates and share our spaces with our neighbors, which is, in my belief, the idea that Jarmo is launching here. No? I also see that there are some antagonistic concepts that we should explore. Isolation. I see our campuses as islands, and I think we should look for a connection, a physical connection, but of course also a digital connection. I think we have done more of our work on the digital connection than in the physical connection. Then there's another one, accessibility or inaccessibility. How accessible are our campuses to our neighbors? And then I see that there are very few or non-streets, public streets coming through our campuses. So you have to go around and go for several miles or kilometers around if you want to cross to the other side, walking or by car. I think we have to work with this challenge that it's been posed here in the panel and try to have campuses without walls. So I am very open to explore those possibilities. I don't see that we can open an entire campus, but maybe we can start with phases. And that's one point that I would like to make here. And as far as now, those are my first thoughts on it. And I hope to hear some of your reactions about it. Thank you.
Muchas gracias, maestro Juan. Pues bueno, es verdad, tenemos un reto muy grande y pues aquí pues damos pie a comenzar como esta discusión. Y pues bueno, adelante.
¿Puedo hacer un comentario?
Por supuesto, adelante.
Bueno, me dio mucho gusto escuchar a Víctor Larios con la experiencia que ya tiene CUSEA con toda la parte de Smart Cities. Y cuando hablamos de campus sin muros, estamos refiriéndonos a esos espacios de innovación abierta. No es literal existan o no los muros físicos o las barreras del campus. Tiene que ver más cómo se interconecta una institución, un campus, con el entorno, con su ecosistema. Voy a poner un ejemplo. Nosotros estamos desarrollando ahora, prácticamente vamos a revisar y actualizar el 100% de la currícula del centro universitario, y lo que vamos a hacer es hacer un modelo, bajo un modelo académico híbrido, flexible, multimodal, que interactúe en la formación del talento con los sectores. Por ejemplo, como bien lo dijo Víctor, pues CUSEA es el centro universitario que tiene una tradición de más de 20 años de vinculación y articulación con los ecosistemas. De tal manera que el llamar no muros a la educación tiene que ver cómo interactúas, cómo flexibilizas la malla curricular para que determinadas unidades de aprendizaje se puedan desarrollar en un entorno de aprendizaje activo con las empresas, ¿no? Bajo un modelo como tipo el modelo francés de alternancia, o el modelo dual alemán, que ahora ha venido teniendo cierta, digamos, hegemonía en la educación superior. Pero lo mismo también, al hablar de no muros, tiene que ver con cómo crear programas de educación para la vida y el trabajo, educación continua. Y en eso sí, abrirlo a la sociedad, no solamente a los egresados de la Universidad de Guadalajara, sino abrir las puertas, porque ahora la población, y sobre todo por la tecnología, está necesitando que los campos profesionales se actualicen. Y, por ejemplo, todas estas competencias transversales basadas en lo que estamos escuchando, del nuevo rol de las ciudades, esas ciudades en donde se aprende, ecosistemas de aprendizaje interactuando, la educación continua es fundamental para que la sociedad vaya a los campus, o incluso con plataformas híbridas puedan apropiarse de ese conocimiento útil. Y esa es la virtud que puede tener la docencia, la investigación y la transferencia de conocimiento. Entonces, de tal manera que, bueno, yo escuché a Juan y creo que en CUSEA tenemos la solución. Te invitamos, Juan, para que nos acompañes a CUSEA y te des cuenta cómo verdaderamente, como lo dijo el doctor Víctor Larios, generando trabajo en ecosistema. Lo mismo con el doctor Santana, trabajamos de la mano, el Museo de Ciencias Ambientales con el CUSEA, y bueno, también pretendemos que el museo se convierta en una extensión del CUSEA, y que el CUSEA se convierta en una extensión del Museo de Ciencias Ambientales. Es una forma de interconectar a las partes para poder lograr el concepto de universidades sin muros y sin fronteras.
A mí me gustaría... adelante, por favor.
Tengo una pregunta de cuáles son los recursos no utilizados que hablan Jarno y Kent. What are the community the unused community resource that Jarmo and Kent are mentioning. Can you list them off so we can understand better?
If I could just very briefly, so as my background is architect, so I'm looking spaces of what can be used in many different ways. They could be physical kind of meeting spaces, fab labs, working spaces. I would say that it's whatever you don't need to have in your core operations could be shared. Even in a museum, you could think that you have your museum space that you need to own, but then you have lots of experimental space that you could use. And in the same way, if you think about the shared bike system or shared apartment system, Airbnb or something, you need to have platform, because it's not you, Eduardo, sharing your spaces to me, but if you have a platform, we could use the same resources in new ways. But these things are very practical. And I think the barriers, like Juan was saying, that it's in digital world, we have opened up lots of opportunities. But in physical world, I think what are the barriers? They are the traditional model of ownership, traditional model of control and operate. That creates entities, islands. And in the museum, in the university, like in the Aalto University, we start very simple thing. We start to identify shared meeting spaces, then shared some labs that could be shared, or some lobbies that could be shared, like Kevin once mentioned, the MIT Media Lab lobby. So Aalto University opens the lobby to high school first, and then the lobbies are meeting rooms behind that, and that opening up, that creates new opportunities. And I think, again, I like to come back to the idea why I was showing the interface and why, for example, Airbnb is successful, because it's not one-to-one. It has the platform that you could open your resources and I could use the resources if I find them usable. And that creates a total difference. And that's an innovation of built environment that has happened already in the digital environment. And if I might say so, many of these comments were really about human interaction. And I use many times the idea of social learning, that we learn together. And the 4 points of social learning, that learning as belonging, that we belong to some area or some group or some community. That usually means also location. And learning as becoming, that we become something else with others. And I think MIT Media Lab is a very good example of becoming, because you see the references in the wall. You see that we have done these things. You see the history of development. Then it's the kind of a sense of believing same purposes or practices. You need to share your kind of concepts with others, and then learning by doing together. You come together. But all these things don't need to happen in one building. We don't need to build buildings in that, because these resources exist in the neighborhood. They could be local bar, they could be local cafeteria, they could be local gym. So instead of university build gyms, why don't you increase the prosperity of the environment by letting entrepreneurs to build the gym, and university will buy capacity. So if I try to simplify this, the space could be whatever, but I'm not interested about square meters. I'm interested about hours, the time, the capacity. And with that capacity, we could think about that any space could be used 1 hour per day or whatever time per day, instead of thinking that I rent the model. It's a very simple idea, but coming back to Eduardo, your question, this could be almost whatever, but we want to start with the low-hanging fruit, something that is easily accessible and shareable. And last thing I want to say, that access means that these shared spaces are somewhat visible, not too deep in the buildings, not too deep in the structures, not after many corridors, but they are like shops or retail. So if you go to any commercial mall, you have glass walls. MIT Media Lab is a perfect example. You go in and you see what you get. So I think that kind of model would be the future, that part of the environment is more visible, it's more perceivable in that. Sorry to the long answer, but maybe that.
So there, couple of clear examples right near us at MIT. If you go to Biogen, they have a big cafeteria that before the pandemic anyway, it was used for a few hours a day, and then it was empty in the morning, it was empty in the evening, empty in the afternoon. I mean, it could be used for other functions. There are many buildings, Media Lab included, where if one walks through there in the middle of the day, even though everybody complains they don't have enough space, there are a lot of spaces that are empty. There may be not enough private offices that people want, but there's lots of underutilized space there. And if we had a way of programming that space, and not just within the Media Lab community, but opening it up to other people in the community, like Kevin said, the lobby is a great example. There are restaurants that are only open at night, so all those tables and seating sit empty during the day, and vice versa. There are restaurants that are only open for lunch. They could be a jazz club at night or whatever. And if one starts thinking this way and deals with the access and security and the other practical issues that one has to think through, then you could, I don't know, add 50%, double the usable space in a community, and in the process establish all kinds of new relationships and experiences for people, and increase the GDP of a community. And I think I would just challenge people to walk around your community and to observe how much space at some point during the day is underutilized.
That happens here in Guadalajara with car washes. The car washes were used during the day and were closed in the evening, and now many sell hamburgers and tacos.
Yeah,
they bring little carts into the car wash, and now they're used for that.
Example. That's fantastic. Yes, exactly what we're talking about.
And maybe I'd add one thing. Car wash selling tacos is a great example, but it's more like what I call the consumer-oriented innovation. It's for consumers. At least what I want to push us to think is the institutional innovation. That how institutions, universities, corporates, big entities could utilize the same way, to be more flexible. All these Airbnb or Uber or taco car washes or things, or even co-working places are focused now on consumer behavior. But if you think about that, institutions, instead of building new institutions, high school is a good example. So we put high school in the network. It's not anymore independent students who actually choose to go to network. High school works in a network, and within 5 years of be working, I probably mentioned it, but it has doubled the size in the network, which it cannot happen in the building. You need to build more space.
You know, the campus without walls concept, it can go two directions. So the university people can go out into the community and use the resources in the community. The community can come into the campus and use the resources in the campus, and then both win. I understand in Latin America, in many places, there are challenges with security and safety, but then again, if you have a high density of people, lots of eyeballs on the street, as we like to say, that tends to increase the safety and security. That's one way to deal with it.
And Kent, so let me add to the security issue. So we are now working here in Tongji in Shanghai with the extension of campus. And as you might know, the campuses in China, they are walled. So you have wall around the campus and the gate. But immediately around the gate, it's a huge traffic. It's like a transportation hub, people going around. And we could develop, and we are actually doing that. You know, again, the Tongji MIT City Science Lab. So we are using the street as a platform. We are using these streets around the campus to create these ecosystems right from the wall. And you don't even need to go inside the campus, because then university use the same resources than the community. And they come together right kind of outside the barriers. So what I'm saying that this kind of incremental innovation, that it don't happen at once, you start with something that is achievable.
Si me permiten, quisiera integrar una pregunta que nos hacen en este panel. En cierta medida puede ser que estas últimas opiniones puedan integrar esta respuesta, pero voy a leerla igualmente. Primero, felicitarlos a todos. Y cómo se integra el factor inseguridad en los entornos de los campus en estos tipos de planteamientos, ya que, pues como mencionaba el doctor Demerutis, ya existían proyectos que buscaban mejorar las condiciones físicas del entorno inmediato. Esto, si me permiten complementar, va en el marco que en Latinoamérica la realidad siempre es compleja. Nos pasó con Uber, donde de repente una aplicación luego se utiliza para el secuestro y complicado, ¿no? Se los dejo y pues adelante.
Was that for who?
Para todo el panel, hay una pregunta sobre cómo se pueden manejar o gestionar este tipo de inseguridades, ya sea como comentaba aquel Larios o no, como comentaba.
Let me say one brief thing, which I didn't maybe mention, but in the Aalto campus, we open up something called campus membership model. So in the first, we invite kind of members that we accept, meaning 140 companies could use the university. We do to everybody in the beginning. So they pay, it's like a gym. You pay the monthly fee or yearly fee, and you have certain ways to use the resources. So in that way, the security is not so crucial issue because we could control who is using and what spaces. But that's just one way to do it. Another way is, of course, using technology and others, but I leave others to comment on that.
I would like to add that in general, that's one of the main problems in our cities. Insecurity, you can, especially women, when they walk out at night, they are usually threatened. They have some issues with people in the street. So it's also a cultural thing. I think parks, for instance, are usually gated, are fenced in general in our city, but I don't see, don't get me wrong, I see a possibility of opening some of the public space, the public areas of our campuses to the public, to the general. That was my point. And I think the cultural center, it's a great example of that possibility with mixed use, housing, commercial, district, offices district, and the cultural and the museum. Mixed use are a wonderful tool in the surroundings of our campuses, but we don't have that in most of them. That's the point. And then this edge, the edge of our campuses, I think they need to be worked a little bit more so we can have that interaction, that blend with the neighbors. That was my point. Don't get me wrong with it. Thank you.
También hay un comentario en el panel de Wendy Díaz, dice, even classrooms could become flexible, but in Mexico we still have very traditional classrooms. So we would need to reshape the interior design of every classroom in CUSEA. Con el marco que hemos visto con el COVID, con estas posibilidades que nos empujaron a esta flexibilidad, ¿ustedes qué opinan con esta? Es verdad que la nueva normalidad, independientemente de las cuestiones sanitarias, nos dejan cierto aprendizaje, sobre todo en la educación. ¿Ustedes qué nos comentarían al respecto? Como dice Wendy, ¿y qué es lo que ustedes han experimentado?
En el caso del CUSEA, lo que nos ha dejado es una gran oportunidad para innovar. Bajo la nueva, esta situación que nos mantiene la pandemia con la imposibilidad de acercar a los estudiantes al campus, nos ha permitido, uno, acelerar las competencias docentes para modelos alternativos de educación, no solamente en línea, sino ir pensando en un modelo híbrido, en un modelo flexible. Aceleró necesariamente la formación docente, pero también está cambiando el paradigma de muchos estudiantes que solían tener un aprendizaje pasivo, o más bien esperando la enseñanza más que el aprendizaje, y esto también está motivando un cambio. En CUSEA estamos planteando un modelo, ya lo ha dicho mucho el coordinador general académico y de innovación, Carlos Iván, de poder avanzar hacia un modelo, que sea híbrido, o sea, que podamos alternar entre una plataforma para el aprendizaje en la parte teórica y la parte presencial para el desarrollo de habilidades blandas. Y estas habilidades blandas se pueden realizar en cualquier parte, no tiene que ser exactamente en un aula y mucho menos puede ser en cualquier lugar del campus o puede ser fuera del campus. Estamos haciendo una gran alianza con el sector empresarial de Jalisco, prácticamente el Consejo de Cámaras Industriales de Jalisco. Ahora el coordinador del Consejo de Cámaras Industriales de Jalisco es el presidente del Consejo Social del CUSEA, es el presidente del Consejo de Vinculación. Se pueden dar una idea que tengamos prácticamente a los 13 sectores industriales, y vaya que son muy potentes, los tengamos en CUSEA colaborando. Por otro lado, también hemos aprendido que tenemos que trabajar mucho las brechas de desigualdad. En CUSEA creamos una plataforma de inclusión y equidad de acceso a las oportunidades por la brecha digital. No podemos avanzar en un modelo educativo innovador si no atendemos las brechas, y estamos resolviéndolo con unas campañas para dotar de equipos de cómputo a los jóvenes que no tienen equipos, dotándoles de internet a quienes no tienen internet desde sus casas, pero también hicimos en el CUSEA una especie de santuario para que quienes no tienen ni internet, ni tienen computadoras, pero además están viviendo una situación de exclusión, violencia intrafamiliar, temas de perspectiva de género, abrimos el campus para ellas y para ellos. Hoy, en el centro universitario, todos los laboratorios están dispuestos para que los jóvenes que no pueden trabajar, seguir sus clases a distancia, vayan a CUSEA. Entonces, hay alternativas. Yo creo que esta pandemia nos está dejando enseñanzas, pero nos deja grandes oportunidades para repensar nuestra educación e involucrar a todos los actores en este proceso de aprendizaje, como lo comentaba. Y lo último es la parte multimodal. Ya lo decía Jarmo, todos, Juan, todos coincidimos en que el aprendizaje ahora puede suceder en cualquier lugar, que tenemos que dejar de pensar en esa aula diseñada en la revolución industrial y que tenemos que replantearnos, ¿no? Que cualquier espacio es lúdico para aprender, para convivir, para crear. Y es en lo que estamos enfocados ahorita en el CUSEA. Estamos planteando, incluso trabajando en colaboración con el TEC de Monterrey. Estamos con Mario Adrián, que es el vicepresidente de la región norte del TEC de Monterrey, comparando cómo tienen ellos su distrito TEC, que es todo un modelo como lo dijo Víctor, para abrir los campus y traer a las empresas, traer a los inversionistas para solución de problemas. Distrito TEC de Nuevo León, de Monterrey, estamos haciendo un esquema muy similar para crear, por ejemplo, lo que dice Víctor, un laboratorio para la ciudad, pero con un parque de tecnología para poder probar. Entonces, bueno, ahí están las grandes oportunidades.
Muchas gracias. Tenemos un minuto para un siguiente comentario que tiene que ver con esto que decías. Es una pregunta para todos sobre precisamente cuál ustedes consideran que es el gran reto que tenemos, sobre todo en este marco latinoamericano, ¿no? Si tiene que ver con la conectividad, si tiene que ver con las clases, con los profesores, con las distracciones, etcétera, ¿no? Un poquito... Ustedes como expertos, ¿cómo consideran que sería nuestro gran reto para abatir, para, pues, digamos, poder llegar a todos con la educación, ¿no?
So if I answer quickly, so it's not only Latin America, it's all over to think about how can we use the environments in new ways. And it's even though it seems to be kind of side path sometimes, it's really this COVID and pandemic will make it very visible that we need to innovate how we use the environment. And the innovation platform would be service. It's not anymore building buildings because we have enough of that. So this way of, again, not only Latin America, but wherever we need to think about, the demand is clear. If I could very briefly summarize like Eduardo was saying about landscape and parkour, that you experience the city in new ways. And Kevin was talking about unused resources and flexible spaces. Gustavo was talking about innovation ecosystems, how to create connections. And Kent about new learning models, hybrid systems. Gabriela about communication, interactive ecosystem, how important that new cultures are. Victor about smart cities and the squad group Helix. And Juan was talking about opening campus to citizens, to the communities. And I think the demand is clear. We need to be more open. We need to be more kind of accessible to others instead of building borders. And the solution, well, I was trying to say that's only one solution, but once we define the demand, then we try to find through the research and development the proper solutions. And I think one of the conclusion for me is that we all are looking for the same direction. We all realize that this current model doesn't support, it's not adaptable, it's not flexible, it's not support the change or the time, the context of working. And again, that's not a Latin America problem, it's the problem of all over, or challenge of all over. Okay.
Yes, so Jarmo, so I would say that if, whether you're talking about a nation or a university, we need to build bridges, not walls.
Yes, exactly. You're simply right.
Pues muchísimas gracias. Muy buena reflexión esta última. Espero que todos nos hayamos puesto a reflexionar con estas propuestas de valor que nos comentan. Finalmente, pues es verdad, las universidades están para sacar el conocimiento y para construir puentes entre todos. Muchísimas gracias a todos por la presencia. Y bueno, pues que pasen buenas noches. Nos vemos mañana.
Gracias a todos. Saludos.
Gracias.
Bye, everyone.
Buenas
very
noches.
much.
Thank you,
Buenas
everyone.
noches.
Good to see you.
Hasta luego.